Okay, welcome back to our videos. I just wanted to show you one example which I was interested in. Now, um, as you know, conversational AI is kind of big these days, and streaming is one very important of conversational AI. When the payload's too large, and you want to be able to make it look more real time as you're chatting, there's the concept of streaming. So we are in the Amazon Bedrock Agentcore samples. We are in PyCharm. We are running Python. We have a virtual environment. And we are in looking at this advanced concept streaming project. And once again, this is provided by Amazon, and it's a tutorial. And so they did a very good job with this. So what I'm going to do is kind of promote this while I'm learning. While we're learning, we're going to look at this. Okay, so let's take a look at the Jupyter Notebook. We have a streaming agent response notebook. Now, if you look at the other files, right, you got a requirements file. So we use that to install and look at the requirements. We have a README file. You should always read that. We're generating this file on the fly. We're generating the Docker file on the fly. We're generating this YAML file on the fly. Now, the images that are in this directory should be showing up in the Jupyter Notebook, and if they don't, then double click on the markup fragments. Eventually, it winds up showing up. So let's take a look at this. Okay, this is streaming responses with Strands agents in Amazon Bedrock Agentcore runtime. So what we are doing is talking to an agent which is running an Agentcore, and we're going to make sure that it streams nicely. Okay, so this tutorial shows you how to stream responses. It demonstrates how stream partial results as they become available, providing a more responsive user experience for operations that generate large amounts of content or take significant time processing. So this is very common, and you have to decide whether you want to use it or not, but this demo shows you how to use it. So the tutorial details: conversational with streaming, agent type is single, we're using a Strands agent, we're using an LM model that's Haiku, and we're streaming responses from Agentcore runtime. So it's an easy example. So let's look at the architecture. So what it is a user asking a question, and it's talking to the cloud. So we're in Agentcore, we're talking to the agent. The agent is exposed as an entry point to the Agentcore runtime, and basically within Agentcore runtime, the agent's talking to two simple tools, and we're also invoking an LLM. So this is the common architecture you'd be looking at when you're using Agentcore. And so let's keep that in mind. Okay, so let's see the tutorial features: streaming responses from agents, real-time partial result delivery, Amazon Bedrock models with streaming, using Strands agents with async streaming support. So that's the whole guts of this, and there's some prerequisites here. Which I tend to kind of ignore because I got my environment set up. So it's using Python 3.10. I have Python 3.14 in my virtual environment. It's using Strands agents and Docker runtime. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it's using my AWS credentials. That is, it's taking my credentials out of my credentials file and using it. Very convenient. So it determines my account, my credentials, and it is capable of doing operations in my Amazon account using my credentials. So Well, let's take a look at this. I believe that's what this demo is doing. If it doesn't use Cognito or JWT, well, if it doesn't use Cognito, it's probably doing that. Okay, so now let's look at this. Okay, so this in this notebook, we are on my Macintosh. Let's call it a laptop. We are on my laptop and we're installing the requirements. Now here's the requirements file. We're doing it quietly and we're forcing a reinstall. Now, this usually works, but the different demo projects install, reinstall, because they might be using different versions of files. If you look at the requirements file, you'll see that it uses Strands Agents, Strands Agent Tools, UV Boto 3, Bedrock Agentcore, and Agentcore Starter Toolkit. And it specifies the certain versions. So each of these projects use these tools, but this is making sure that this particular folder uses a certain version of things. So sometimes you don't have to install this and it works, and sometimes you have to install it for it to work. So let's ignore this for now. I don't believe I have the kernel running. Run cell and select. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is let me run this because what's going to happen down here, what should happen, this is doing a forced reinstall. It's doing it quietly, and what I expect to see is that the Jupyter Notebook runtime will start up first. I might have to run this again if the notebook is not running. But anyway, let's move on and let's see what else is down here. Okay, preparing for the streaming agent for deployment on Agentcore runtime. Let's show how the streaming agent to Agentcore runtime. The streaming functionality is handled automatically by Agentcore SDK when you use async generators or yield statements in your entry point function. So the key points of the implementation: use async def for your entry point. That's one important thing to note. Do we have an entry point down here? Yeah. So we're using the async def down here with the entry point. So that's the big difference. You want this thing to stream, right? So we're defining a function down here which is streaming by saying async def. So that's important. Now I don't see this thing finished here. I can't tell whether it was completed or not. Let's run it again just for the heck of it, because I should see a check mark down here. Okay, so then there's use yield to stream chunks as they become available. Okay, so let's see where that's being used. That's being used over here. Stream each chunk as it becomes available. So async for event in agent stream async. If data in event, then yield for this data. Okay, so that's what that says. The Agentcore SDK automatically handles the server sent events. Okay, so looking at this, we're going to write this file to disk. So let's see what this file says. It's going to appear over here. So we should be writing over this file. But let's take a look what this is saying. Agentcore SDK automatically handles server sent events, SSE format. Let's see. Okay, here's the Bedrock Agentcore. We're importing Bedrock Agentcore app. We're importing a Bedrock model. And now we have a tool called Weather, which returns sunny. We have a tool called getTime, which returns the time. We define our model ID and we instantiate a Bedrock model. Then we have an agent which uses the model and the tools. So we're using 3 tools here: calculator, weather, and getTime. Your helpful assistance, you do simple math calculations. That's the system prompt, telling the agent how it's being used. Okay, now here's the entry point. This is the thing that's going to be exposed through Agentcore. It's not only an app entry point, it also is async. So invoke the agent with streaming capabilities. It demonstrates the streaming capabilities in the Agentcore. So you get the user input, you get the prompt. There's the user prompt, you're printing it, and stream each chunk as it becomes available. So async for event and agent, stream async user input. If data in event yield the event data. And then there's an exception here that catches exceptions if there's a stream error. And then we run the app. So notice this file. It does 3 things, right? It instantiates the app. It defines an entry point. And it runs the app. And the only thing that's really different here is we're using the streaming, and we have an async definition for the streaming. Now, all we're doing is writing this file. So let me press. So I just rewrote the file here. Let's see if I am. Yeah, so all my installs did happen. What is this? All my installs did happen. So here I've overwritten the strands Claude streaming Python file. Now understanding the streaming in Agentcore. When you use streaming in Agentcore, several things will happen. Server sent events in SSE format. Agentcore automatically converts your yielded data into SSE format. Each yield becomes data event in the stream. And the content type is automatically set to event stream. Clients can receive the real-time data and have a better experience before the complete response is ready. And then there's error handling. Now we're going to deploy the streaming agent to Agentcore. The create agent runtime operation supports the configuration. You could also configure HTTP, MCP, authorization mechanisms to control how the clients communicate with the agent. Right, so there's a wide variety of things you can do. I'm going to go to whatever this demo is doing because I want to see if it works. Okay, operations best practice, use ECR. The Python SDK can package your artifacts and deploy them. That's what we're going to do. So what we're doing is we're going to configure the Agentcore runtime deployment. We use the starter toolkit to configure the runtime deployment with an entry point. Okay, the starter kit also creates the ECR launch, and so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the application developer to use decorators and their models and frameworks to generate a Docker file that can be launched, right? Deployed and launched. So let's take a look at the next step. Okay, we use the starter toolkit to import runtime. Now, we do this because we're going to deploy to Agentcore, which is running in an AWS environment, which needs a runtime. So we have a Boto session. Boto 3 is the SDK for Python, and we define the region. I don't know what this is doing here, but we're going to run this. So the point is that we instantiate a runtime, and then we configure the runtime with our agent, right? So we have an entry point. We're going to create a role. We're going to do an auto create ECR to true. Require file is this one, region, and the agent name. Now, basically we're saying, okay, we're going to use Agentcore runtime, and we're going to use these arguments as configuring the runtime. And what that does is configure an endpoint and a role and things that are needed to build the, we're going to use a Docker file to build the endpoint, and we're going to deploy that and launch it. Okay, so first let's execute this and see what happens. If I get an error, I will have to clean up or change the name of something. So all of these are done the same way. Just so you know, you are creating a runtime for an endpoint, and you're pointing to the entry point. In this case, it's an async definition. So is going to support the streaming coming back, right? So we're just naming the agent streaming, but everything else is pretty much standard in instantiating the runtime in Agentcore. Now remember, I'm using my credentials on my laptop, so it's going in my credential file and making sure that Steve, the developer, is using this laptop, but the credentials in my credential file basically allow this code to create a runtime. And so it's still running, and it's looking at the entry point. It says memory is disabled. It has the Bedrock streaming for this file, and it looked at the entry point, and it's saying that its name is Strands Claude Streaming. Okay, so it's finished. Okay, so basically what has happened here is it doesn't find a container, it creates one, it registers it, it uses a Docker file, it has uses the Docker file, and it uses ECR. Now it's going to launch the runtime. It's going to launch the agent. Okay, so let's just make sure we understand what happened here. I'm going to ignore this. Using the existing Docker file. I already created the Docker file, so it's using the existing Docker file. So what else? A Bedrock Agentcore configured. Now we have a YAML file which was generated as well. So this Docker file and this YAML file will be used. The Docker file has, basically the Docker file just wants to pull the code, do the install, and do everything that it's instructed to do. It's going to be using a Docker container. It's going to be pulling the code. It's going to be installing the Python code. It's going to all the installable libraries. It's going to be running the endpoint. So if you look at this Docker file, you'll see that. Now the configured results. So here's the YAML file that was created, and I'll say it was. Yeah, the rendering on this thing is giving me some problems. Okay, so basically we're going to launch. Okay, so maybe I should show you the Docker file. The Docker file looks like this. Oh, from this image, we're going to make a directory. We're going to do a pip install on requirements. We're going to make sure that OpenTelemetry works, so we get some good observability with this thing. Added a user called Agentcore, exposed some ports, copied the entire project, and then it runs this command. So the Docker file, once it gets launched, it runs the Python code and the endpoint is available. So that's what this does. You could look at that, and then what's really nice is you get the infrastructure created here using this file. So you have the name of the agent, the language, the entry point. The entry point is this this file. There's my account, my region. I got an agent ID, an agent ARN. Now I need this agent ARN to call my agent. So once this is deployed in Agentcore, then we have a mechanism to call it. I could call the endpoint with this ARN. So just keep that in mind. We're not using memory, and we're using my credentials from the credential file, so it doesn't matter. So this nice file gets created. Who the heck wants to code CloudFormation these days? But there it is. And so now what we're going to do is launch the streaming agent. Now that we've got the Docker file, let's launch the streaming agent to the Agentcore runtime. So what we do is launch this thing, and the Docker file goes into the ECR registry. The code build code runs and launches it, and we wind up with an Agentcore runtime with the runtime agent in there, and we also have the endpoint. Pretty abstract for something so simple, but the whole point is that the developer is still here making this happen. Okay, so let's launch the Agentcore runtime. Remember, the Agentcore runtime is doing some things for me here which are kind of magical. Remotely, I'm dealing with my Amazon account remotely. I haven't left my desktop yet. Okay, so I'm launching this. Let's see if this runs. Okay, so there's some things that are going on here that you need to take note of. Deploy Python, no Docker required, but the default behavior is one thing. But right now what we're doing is deploying the Docker file. So we set up the ECR registry here. We need the execution roles. The repository doesn't exist, so it's creating a new repository. It's showing me the ECR repository. Now, if I go to Amazon right now, I would go and look and see these things being created, but I don't want to confuse myself. I want to make sure I understand this code well and I know what I'm doing. So, I got an error. So let's see what the error is. Failed to update the agent ID. An error occurred. Resource not found exception when called. Okay, so this is saying please check the agent ID and try again. I usually get that error when I reused. Shucks. I'm gonna change this name. I'm gonna see if this fixes the problem. Now, I'm making a mess of my Amazon account because I just deployed something and I didn't clean up. But I want to get through this block to make sure that my agent ID is unique and I have access to it. So I'm just guessing that this is probably the problem. Okay, so let's try to launch again. Sometimes you get these errors and you have to go back and change something. And in this case here, if this doesn't fix it, I might have to run the whole notebook again, but it's probably more likely that I would go down to the bottom of the notebook and clean house. The cleanup scripts attached to the notebook don't always work completely, but most of the time they do. So right now we're just trying to get this block of code to work. Crossing my fingers, it looks like it's working now because I have a different, yes, I got through it. Okay, so basically there was an agent ID that probably was in my Amazon environment, and it was causing me some problems. So I need to clean house. If you look at the bottom of this notebook, there's a clean house script. I usually run it. Sometimes it doesn't clean everything, but when you go over to your Amazon account, you could pretty much look at your names of your agents and clean things up as much as possible. But I don't do that enough. So here, checking the Agentcore runtime status. Let's see if the agent is in a particular state. And this code goes in and gets the status and makes sure that we print the status. Now notice it's Agentcore runtime status. So we're still using the runtime. So the agent, which I put a 2 here, is ready. Okay, so let's look at the next block. Invoke Agentcore runtime with streaming. Basically, this user is going to use an application and invoke the endpoint, and the data chunks are going to come back streamed. That's what we're getting out of this. So the application, the user sees word, and it looks like it's in real time talking to someone instead of waiting for that result all at once, giving the user the effect that they're in a more live conversation with an agent. So let's try to do this. Invoke. What is the weather like? Okay. So we didn't get to see how it looks. Let's try it again. I think I'm having some problems rendering within my charm. Yeah, so let me Okay, we just saw the output, so I don't really know what's going on here. Let me try to move the screen a little bit. Okay, what the heck happened here? Turns out my PyCharm is using, well, I think I'm allocating 3 gigs, but let's go back and look at it and see what happened here. And we're gonna just, if we don't see the result, we're just going to move on because, okay. Well, this is what we saw, and the truth is it's not. This is a hard-coded function, so we don't expect this to take that long. And at the same time, if it took long, we'd see the weather is sunny. We'd see the chunks being streamed, and I don't want to get too much caught up in that. Okay, so you could see demos with streaming. Let's take a look at invoking Agentcore runtime with Bodo 3 with streaming. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're importing Bodo 3. We're importing some of the markdown display. We have a client. We have an Agentcore client we're creating using Bedrock Agentcore. And then we invoke the agent runtime with the client. And we give it the agent ARN and how much is 2 plus 1, the payload. The JSON object which says how much is 2 plus 1. Check if this response is streaming. We do this if, check if it's coming back with this response. The content type has to be event stream, processing stream response. It's printing. And it's getting a line. It's getting the response with a chunk size of 1. And it's appending this to the output. And so it gets the full response and it displays it. Then there's some event handling here. Let's see how this runs. Okay, so it's running now, and now it's processing the results. So the client, what it seems like is this client is getting the chunks, but then it's just joining them and showing you the result. But you could display the results also, and like I said, this is a simple function, so we don't expect it to take too long. But we are receiving chunks. And so that's what this is supposed to demonstrate. What you'll see is there are some demos on YouTube you could see, and I'll put one of them in the link in the YouTube video because I saw one that was absolutely fantastic and one you should probably see. Okay, benefits of streaming: user experience, immediate feedback, see partial results as they become available. Responses feel faster even though total time is the same. A progressive display, long responses can display incrementally. Okay, technical benefits. Without loading everything into memory, you get memory efficiency. You get timeout prevention, avoids timeouts of long-running operations. And you get real-time processing. You could process the results as they become available. What I suggest you do, if you want to, you could delay the back end so it looks more like a real use case. But let's see what this thing is doing. Use cases, content generation, long-form writing reports and documentation, data analysis, progressive results from complex calculations, a multi-step workflow, show progress through complex agent reasoning, real-time monitoring, live updates from monitoring agents. Okay, so there are some benefits there. If you look at Agentcore observability, go through the observability tutorials, what you'll see is you'll see the trace, and you'll see the spans, and you'll see how much each piece of the communication is taking place, and you'll realize that 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and it might not be an issue, but it could be an issue. So you have to weigh that out and try to figure out whether you need to do streaming. Now let's see. Now let's clean up Agentcore runtime. Let's get these values first to see what we're dealing with. Okay, so we get the values, and now we're going to clean up the values. We're going to use the Boto 3 client to get the Agentcore control client. So the Agentcore control client is the one that's used to clean up, and it helps you control the configurations and stuff. And then here, we're deleting the agent runtime, and we're deleting the repository. So let's run this. And like I said, the thing about this is not the complexity. The thing about this tutorial is learning. And when we want to learn how to stream using Agentcore, it appears to be, very easy to modify your code and get it to work. And this folder gives us a clear understanding of how to learn how to do this, and how we can create another Jupyter notebook to make it happen. And like I said, what is going on here? But as I said, cleaning up is important, and sometimes if this doesn't clean up everything, you might have to extend the cleanup so it cleans up everything. My goal is just to make sure that this block runs and I can clean up. Now, I don't know if that ran. Let me run it again. And also, I want to point out that thing that makes this smooth is I have, in my credentials file, I have administrative permissions to do things within Bedrock, Agentcore, and so that's the value of using my credential. I don't have any problem doing this, and this demo is. See, now I got another problem here. Okay, maybe I'm trying to delete something and it's already, it says Bodo 3 is not defined. It's interesting that I would get that error because I don't the installed library should still be there. But I think we have another problem. So what I'm going to do is let me first run this again. So let me I don't know how that went away, but let's try to run it now. If we get an error, we're just going to move on. Yeah, we still have the error. Oh, it says the region. Okay. Obviously, something went wrong. I got to go to my Amazon account and try to remove it. Let's end this video. So this was a really good example of how we were using Strands Claude streaming with Agentcore. So good work. Thank you very much. And then now I'm going to let you guys go and let's look at the next video.